Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Coming to you fresh fest today. I just got back from the gym and freshened up and just decided, you know what, let me shoot this video before I forget everything that I want to say. If you're new here, my name is Lisa. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're a returning subscriber, I love having you here. I love having conversations with you. I hope your week has been well. I hope your month is going well. We literally just have like a week before May is over. And wow, I'm not so sure if we're getting older, like that's why days are moving faster, or days are just technically moving faster. To be honest, I do not know. Anyway, I met someone like a few days ago, and before that I hadn't seen them in like a month or two, and when they looked at me, they were like, girl, you look good. Tell me why I felt gassed up. I was just like, something's working. And yeah, we went on to talk about how consistency in terms of going to the gym pays off. And I was just like, yeah, everything I'm sacrificing, even that breakfast that I'm not having because I'm fasting intermittently, is paying off. It is paying off. I think you can also see from my cheeks, like they're not as chubby. I've always been a chubby kid, so they'll always be chubby, but they're not as chubby as they were before, I guess, if you know what I mean. Anyway, last time we talked about the similarities between Kenya and Australia, but today I want to focus on the differences, because I think this is sort of like make or break if you're sort of like deciding to move abroad and you're not so sure how to navigate everything. Of course, the similarities sort of like ease you a bit, but sometimes the differences are what sort of like helps you either decide to move or think if you can settle in, or you're better off in your home country. Having lived in Kenya literally all my life and having lived in Australia for the past few years, I think I can boldly say that these are just some of the differences that I have found for me, or in my experience. So without further ado, let's get started. The first one has to be on the climate. So many times I've met people who are like, oh, what's the weather like? And to be honest, I always say it's pretty much the same, but it's not the same. Australia is very temperate, and it has, of course, distinct seasons with winter, autumn, summer, spring kind of thing. Kenya, on the other hand, is a bit more tropical, and in as much as yes, there's like sunny days where we refer to them as like Kenyan summer, it's not like as distinct. So there's two rainy seasons, and then there's just hot and cold. So we don't have all that winter jazz. And that's something that I find, of course, very different, because in Australia the winters are super cold, the summers are super hot, getting to like 40 degrees, and you're like, how am I supposed to survive? In Kenya, I think the hottest I saw recently, which is due to climate change, was maybe 30 something degrees. And then of course it's been raining a lot more, which technically it rains around June, so it's not too far off. But yeah, that's a very distinct difference, and that's why you'll find like so many people are told in Australia to like wear sunscreen, don't like stay in the sun too long, because there's so many cases of skin cancer, which of course because of the sun layer and all that stuff. I am not so good at geography, but I'm trying to explain, so I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Number two that I have found as such a huge difference is in terms of healthcare. So Australia has this healthcare system that uses Medicare, where you can literally get free healthcare from the hospital. if you go to a government hospital, you're not required to pay anything. If you go to a private hospital, you will pay, but then Medicare will sort of like reimburse you. I think it's 60% depending on the service you went in for. In Kenya, the sort of equivalent of Medicare, what should be the equivalent, is what is NHIF, if I'm not wrong. I think it was to change. I don't know if it has changed, but it's NHIF. And in as much as it's supposed to provide you like with free services, sometimes you sort of like have to pay on top of that. And to get better quality services in Kenya, many people resort to using private health insurance, which of course costs money. Private health insurance is also in Australia, but the fact that you can actually get good healthcare without necessarily having private health doesn't require one to have private health to like get good healthcare, if you know what I mean. But yeah, in Kenya, private healthcare is what will get you a good room, is what will get you access to good doctors, in a clean facility. It's sad, but this is the reality. So that's such a huge difference. Number 3 is on the education system, which of course both countries sort of like offer good quality education systems. The only difference is the access to it. So in terms of Australia, you're better placed to like go to higher vocational trainings or higher education a lot more easily than sometimes if you are in Kenya, especially if you do not sort of like have the resources to help you get to high quality education or the higher levels of education provided within the country. So Kenya has all these levels of education, which are fantastic, but then if you're just a normal citizen and are trying to maybe study, sometimes it's not as easy. So if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the money, this can be a challenge. While in Australia, as a citizen, you can easily get to study. I think all you need is sort of like to have HEX, which is the equivalent of HELB, the loan. And it's, I think, more easy to get HEX than it is to get HELB in Kenya. So that's sort of like the difference. The education system is pretty much the same, but then access to it is where the difference lies. Number 4, and one that I think I really love, is the transport infrastructure in Australia. Now this varies from state to state, whether you're living in the city, whether you're living in the rural areas, but it is so streamlined. The fact that I can actually go on my phone, open the transport app and check like what time a bus will come, check the stops that it will have before I get to my destination, makes it easier for me. In Kenya, it's a little bit different because the buses are there, transport is there, but then the fact that you do not have, like, it's not streamlined. So you know the way in Australia, there'll be like bus stops and you'll be told by 11:40 the bus departs. In Kenya, you will be seated there waiting for the bus to get full before it departs, and you're like, I'm getting late. But yeah, that's just a difference. Another difference still within the transport is, of course, the hype around public transport in Kenya. Like, it has to have loud music, it has to have certain looks for it to attract people into it, which is not necessarily the case in Australia. Literally, the buses are so plain, no music, you just get in, go to wherever you're going, and yeah, life moves on. You don't have to attract customers, if you know what I mean. Number 5 is the safety and security. I have touched on this, I think, in one of my videos previously, where I was talking about how in Australia I can literally just walk with my phone in the city, do not fear anything. In Kenya, in the city, well, it's safe, but then it depends on where you are. So there's certain places you cannot just take out your phone and start texting or calling, because someone will grab it off your ear. Someone will pickpocket your bag. You're literally just carrying a bag, focusing on walking. Someone gets something from your pocket or your handbag or your backpack if you have any, and I think it sort of makes me very cautious every time I've gone back. I'm just like, let me put this, I'm cautious, let me you know, you have to be on the lookout. You're walking but you're like, what's going on? In Australia, it's generally safe, but then again, it also depends on where you're going, because there's a few sketchy places as well. One thing that I think attracts many people to living abroad, not just Australia, is the fact that there's more job opportunities, there's more work opportunities compared to Kenya. Not to say these opportunities are not there in Kenya, but they do exist. But then again, because of the high population and less jobs, it just makes it so hard sometimes for you to get a good job, sometimes even just to get a job, not even a good job, just a job. In Australia, of course, there's more job opportunities, not just in the formal sector but also in the informal sector, which is technically looked down upon in Kenya, because in Australia you'll tell someone you're a cleaner, they'll just be like, oh, okay, cool. In Kenya, when you say you're a cleaner, they think of like how much you're making so little money, how are you surviving on such a low salary and stuff like that. So there's the whole sort of like thinking or thought around working in the informal sector versus working in the formal sector. Everyone wants, okay, not everyone, but most people want to work in the formal sector in Kenya, while in Australia, the informal and formal sectors still tend to thrive because people are just willing to put in the work, basically. And so that provides opportunities for individuals wherever. So Kenya is sort of like still a growing economy, and yes, there's opportunities. And to be honest, I think Africa in general is where opportunities lie, just because the population is younger, and so there's more to do. But then we are not there yet. Let me just say that we're not there yet. Hopefully we do get there, but we're not there yet. Cost of living is another one. Cost of living in Australia or abroad is high. Let me not lie to you. The cost of living is high. The amount you're paying on rent, the amount you're paying on food, the amount you're paying on utilities, on fuel, literally, it is high. It is high. It is high. In Kenya, the cost of living is not as high as, of course, Australia. It just also depends, because living in the city in Kenya and living like in a town in Kenya, cost of living also varies. The city will obviously be higher, but then it's still affordable compared to living in Australia. So yeah. Alrighty, that brings me to the end of today's video. I have talked about the differences that I sort of like know from my own experience. There's a bit more that I guess people who've lived here longer or who have moved back would know of, but these are just some of the ones I know of. I hope this helps you in making your decision if you're planning to move. If you know someone who's planning to move, please share this video with them, and I hope it helps. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and as usual, I will see you in my next one. Bye.